Hey everybody, my name is Aaron Locks. This is Talk, Teach, Play. I'm excited today. Our topic is one that we've been talking about. I'm getting a lot of messages in, and parents, I know you want to understand this. And the question really comes down to, do the life lessons you learn by playing youth football translate, and are they really worth the potential injuries associated with it? I'm very blessed today to have my good friend and ex-NFL player, Michael Stone. Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. Always good to see
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. Always good to chat with you, right? Um, just so you all know, Michael played 7 seasons in the NFL. He played with the Giants, the Texans, the Patriots, and the Cardinals. And so we got somebody that played from youth ball all the way up. And oh, by the way, not just did he play football, but he's also a dad. I thought, man, to put that all together would be great. And so, Michael, I'm just going to jump right in if I can, man. How's life treating you? Everything going well?
Everything's going good. Everything's going good.
Good, good. Love to hear that. Great. Well, I just want to start with, there's the big premise of question, and we'll dig into the meat and potatoes, so to speak. But, how did you start playing football, man? What age did you start playing football at?
I'll be honest, Aaron, I started late. I started a lot later than my friends. I started at the age of 12.
12, okay.
So when I got into football, I was behind the curve. I had to learn. I had to pick up this technique and all that stuff a little bit late in the game. But I did start about 12 years old.
So 12 years old, which actually might have been, in hindsight, might have been a good thing for you in the sense that, because, we're reading about all the injuries and things that are associated, CTE and other things that are happening more with the younger kids. What do you think was the reason why you started at 12 rather than at 9 or earlier?
I'll be honest, I wasn't really into sports young. I really I'm the oldest, I'm the oldest boy, so
Okay.
I wasn't really into sports. So I think I picked it up because one of my friends picked it up. I said, hey, let me try it out one year. And I loved it and had it, so stuck with it.
Right on. Very cool. Okay. So, so you started at 12 years old, which is like 7th grade, junior high school, right? And you're playing some football, and then you fell in love with playing the game, right?
Oh, yeah.
Was it the work? What was it that took you a while? I mean, like, how did you fall in love with football?
I tell you what, it's a bumpy start. I sat on the bench for the first few years, mainly because I just didn't know how to play football. Yeah. I had speed, I had strength, but I didn't know how to play football. So it took me a couple of years. I took some bumps and bruises then, but, once I started to figure things out, I really started to like the game.
Man, what a trip. So you think about this and think about the situation you're in, that you made it to the NFL and you didn't start playing till 12. And you ended up on the bench for a couple of years. Man, you're a hell of a success story, right? I mean, if you think about that don't happen every day, right?
I've always been come from behind, man. Always.
No, as long as I know you, that's right. Absolutely, coming from that. So let me ask you this. Okay, so let's kind of go forward. Knowing what you know now, and I'm not going to dig too deep into the whole piece, but I mean, right now it's kind of a trip because they say 5% of all sports-related concussions of every sport comes from contact football, right? So and we know the longevity of it. What's cool, I think there's been lots of changes, but let me just ask you about the program for a second. Do you think that the rule changes they put in have significantly made a difference to the game itself and also to the perception? I mean, like I'm watching and like it's almost touch football at times, right? I mean, it's changed a little bit, and I understand why. What are your thoughts about how the game changed?
I mean, I think the NFL has a responsibility to try to limit these head injuries. Because at the end of the day, you want to keep kids playing the sport. You want to keep parents confident with kids playing and coming up through the sport. So you have all the things that they're doing, you almost have to do. And the game seems a little bit different as you start to see these things employed. But, I mean, this is stuff the NFL has to do in order to keep people playing the sport.
Right. Now, you didn't play that long ago, but I know the equipment has also changed too, right? Because it's not like you're out there with leather pads and helmets on, but I got to imagine that the equipment has also changed. You think that's had something to do with not just the safety, but which I'll ask you about the safety and the way the game's played?
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's been funny because for years, it seems like from the 90s to 2005, the equipment didn't change at all. And all of a sudden, once everybody got, conscious of concussions, it seems like it's really improving a lot now. So I think the jumps that are being made now, improve helmets is important. And,
Yeah,
You
yeah,
saw
right,
it's like when you think back about it, you know, I'm not as old enough to have leather helmets, but
right, right.
yeah, it wasn't that much of a jump until just recently.
Okay, I got it. All right. So when you think about, getting back to kind of our topic and going through this, but okay, so you grew up in Michigan, right? That's where you grew up in Michigan. Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, were you into cars? I'm always curious because I got some family in Michigan, and they're big into cars, and then Detroit and all that. Was cars something you're interested, or
I was somewhat interested in cars. We had the Detroit Auto Show every year. We used to go to the
right,
auto
right.
show every single year. But yeah, I was somewhat interested.
Believe it or not, my mom's brother, so my uncle is a writer for the auto
uh,
show. And what was cool for him is every year we would see him, he was driving a new car because they would give him a car and he'd get to drive it around, brand new car for about a
uh,
month before he ride it
the
up. I'm like,
perks.
man, that's a good life right there, right?
That's the perks right there.
Yeah. All right. So when you think about what you learned, looking back on it, right? And the life lessons that you learned. I mean, 7 seasons, over 50 games, 60 games in the NFL. There's a lot can be learned. But I gotta imagine you went to Memphis, right?
Yep.
And so you played college football, you played pro football. So and starting at age 12. So give me some lessons that you think that you learned from the game of football or the experience. I mean, the obvious ones, dealing with
Got it.
success and failure, right? But give me some other life
Got it.
lessons that you think that you learned from football.
Yeah, I think the biggest lessons I learned very early on. I think in life you don't get many chances to see the before and after. I think sports gives you a chance to actually, kind of speed up the process. So, watching, when I first started playing football, watching how I struggled, I learned to really dig in, keep working, and I actually saw it, change my game over the
Okay.
course of a couple of years. So I think sports gives you a chance to really to put in the work and actually see the benefit in a short term.
Right.
And it gives you a chance to learn how to bounce back from problems, be resilient.
Right.
So I learned how to be resilient through sports by, you take a loss, you come right back and that's just part of what sports is. You
Right.
have to learn how to deal with loss. You have to learn how to deal with winning, and you have to learn how to, go through the process. Working hard pays off, and you actually can see it in sports.
Right. That's kind of interesting. I got to work with Joe Montana a little bit, quarterback for the Niners, that those of you don't know, back in the
Oh, Joe
day.
Montana. Okay. Oh,
There
that
you go.
guy.
Yeah,
That
and
guy.
he always would preach. We were talking in business related, but we were talking about fail fast, fail forward. Lesson in
Mhm.
football was that, man, when I get hit and knocked down and my face is in the mud, you know what I mean? I've got 30 seconds to figure out what I'm going to do next, because if not, they're going to do that again, right? And you're one of those guys that was putting them on the
Exactly.
ground, right? That's what it's about.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So
So
what?
you have to react fast. You can't wallow in the mud, and all those things are needed for life to be able to
Right.
compete in life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think is important, and knowing you as I have for a while now, is the word accountability. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of different sports out there. Football to me is the ultimate team sport because, basketball, it's a lot more free flowing, soccer, lacrosse, right? And not that they don't have plays and organized structure, I get it. But in football, like, everybody has to be lined up at the same time. Everybody has to start and move at the same time, right? And there's some individual accountability, especially when that flag comes out and you're like, no, man, I didn't hold him, right? Or whatever, right? There's an individual accountability. Tell me about
Yeah.
accountability. And it's interesting because I know we've talked in the past, but as you went from high school to college to pros, how did the accountability lesson change? And how did that experience change or have an effect on you?
Yeah, I'll be honest, Aaron. I think football is the ultimate team sport. There's no sport like football as far as accountability because, like you said, if anybody messes up in the course of a play, it causes an issue on the play, and you have to kind of stand up and acknowledge what you did. I'll tell you what. I played for when I played for the Patriots for Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
After the game, we watched the film on the Tuesday following the games, and
Yeah.
you have to actually watch everything that happened in the game and take responsibility for what you did wrong. And not many, I don't think many professions are in that kind of situation to where you have to actually review everything you did
Wow.
at the job and just say, look, I messed up here, I messed up there, so the team can identify what the problem is. Because if you're not accountable, you can never identify what the problem is.
Right.
And that's kind of what the whole film study is all about in
Wow.
professional sports.
It's funny because my belief is I don't think there's any better life skill teaching tool than youth sports, right? I just don't know anything in life. And again, there's nothing wrong. I play the piano, and my mom's an artist, and I get it, all these different things, and they're beautiful, right? But ultimately, I feel like in sports, the ability to develop relationships and teamwork and cooperation and all these other skills that are out there. But I've got a whole list of these things. So what are things? Okay, so you've got Eli, right? Oh, so you have 4 boys, right? 9. Eli's 9.
I'm
Noah's
4 for
11.
4.
What's that?
Yep.
4
I'm 4 for 4.
4 for 4.
Undefeated.
There you go. That's right. So Eli's 9. Noah's 11. Isaiah's 15. And Micaiah is 17, right? So 4 boys from 9 to 17. So let's talk about the journey for them. I would assume they're not all just playing football, right? I mean, you've got them. What are they doing? What's going on with your kids, man?
Oh, they're doing everything, man. My 2 youngest are playing soccer and basketball.
Okay.
My oldest played lacrosse. My 15-year-old Isaiah plays basketball and football. And I'm a laid back dad. I'm not those dads that is hanging on the fence, yelling at my kids.
Right.
You know, my dad was laid back. My dad, when I played football, my dad was very laid back, and it allowed me to flourish and love the game and not, be getting berated for every mistake. So I try to do the same thing with my kids.
That's cool. I've known you for a while, and I've known that, your kids are like you. You know what I'm saying? They're you, and I feel the same way with my kids. But I also know what you just said is really important. I hope that the people are listening, as someone who literally, like I said, went from a 12-year-old never played before to the NFL. The fact that your dad was laid back and let it be your journey and let you do it your way and trusted the process is big. So do you see some of those parents sometimes on the sidelines of soccer, basketball, or whatever? Right? You see them?
Oh yeah, I coached my kids since they were about 5 years old in football.
Okay.
So I watched it the whole way up. You see dads, basically living through their kids. So, they're yelling at them for every mistake, and the kids are looking at it like it's a job at that point. When they're being, yelled at, all that level of pressure at that age, it kind of burns them out.
Well, according to the Aspen Institute, it's 61% of kids that sign up to play a sport for 2 years. After that, they'll sign up, and then after 2 years, they're going to quit. And it's too much pressure from the parents. And it's not fun anymore. Like you said, it's a job. You know what I mean? So how are you seeing that? I mean, what do you think when you're in that scenario and you look at it and you're like, because I know what it is as a parent, you really want what's best for your kids, but you also think your kid's amazing and they should get to play the position they want and catch the ball every time and all those different things. So you got a message for parents? Like, what would you say if let's say I got an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old, and I said, okay, my son's going to play sports. What do you got for me, man? What do you recommend I do besides get the hell out of the way and leave him alone?
No, I think that I guess I'll first say this. I think pressure is a good thing. It's hard to recreate the pressure of playing sports on a kid. So a fair amount of pressure is a good thing because they get used to dealing with pressure. Okay. But you have to understand as a parent that they have enough pressure from their team, the accountability from everybody else. They don't need your additional pressure on top of it. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is allow them to struggle under pressure and figure things out without yourself having to be on top of them, because they're gonna figure it out at some point regardless.
Right. And it's funny to me, as I remind people a lot, the relationship with my kids as dad is much more important to me than my relationship with them as coach. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to coach and teach, but ultimately they have to feel unconditional love and safe space. I mean, think about this. If you're one of those kids that is angst like that, and you got to go out there and play, and then you got to deal with that when you get home as well, man, that's not going to be much fun. That's going to interrupt the lesson, right?
Oh yeah, that's a long job.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
As a kid, and you can't wait to start because of that pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do your kids feel any pressure because of your athleticism in the game of football? Did they feel any pressure, you think?
I try not to. I try to cut it off where I see it, but no, I don't think they feel the pressure. I don't. Again, I'm whatever my kids do, whether they're a president or a CEO or a football player.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me. I think they have their own individual journeys, and I don't want to put my journey on top of theirs.
So getting back to the game of football for a second. So, I mean, I love the fact that how you're approaching your boys, and obviously they're cool little, young gentleman. You know what I mean? I get it. So now in the game of football, can you tell somebody, you know what? Yeah, try football. Like okay, or do you think flag? Like, how would you, if Noah said, man, Dad, I want to play football, right? Are you saying, okay, but this is how we're going to do it? I mean, how are you going to weigh that out a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, my suggestion is always flag until they get aged to where 10 or 12 to where they're solid enough to really take those head hits on.
Right.
But I mean, a lot of skills in flag football. I think the core skill set for football can be gained through flag football,
right.
Unless you're a lineman, offensive, defensive lineman.
Right.
But yeah, I think when you're dealing with your children, you don't want to their heads are important and their brains are growing at a very young age, and you want to make sure you're not putting them in a situation to where they'll regret it later.
Okay. And if you were going to have them play, would you? Like for me, I remember when Mia went to play soccer, right? And she was young the first time, because I know a little bit about sports. So when I dropped her off and I went through the deal, and I literally sat on the sidelines and I was kind of watching like, okay, that's my daughter. You know what I mean? And that's just soccer. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, let's see what y'all are doing out here. You know what I mean? So what do you say to someone, okay, let's say the kid wants to play whatever the sport, football, whatever, and now they're going to go out. Tell me about what your thought process in the importance of the role between parent and coach. I mean, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I look at the coach. I think when my child is playing sport, especially football, I'm looking at the coach. If I realize the coach is overzealous, if I realize the coach is doing too much contact in practice or things like that, I don't have any problem saying, hey, look, you should probably cut back on this contact, because a lot of times coaches aren't coached well. So a coach may be a parent who hasn't been coached how to coach well. Right. So you really want to look at that, the over aggressive coaches or things like that. And I think it's important to make your position firm with the coach so they understand where you stand as a parent, because all of us are here for the ultimate safety of our kids behind everything.
I've had a couple of other sessions like this are recorded. In fact, I would remind people listening to subscribe to this channel, because some of the other conversations you can take a look at about that topic. But I do think it's important because, I mean, when you look at that coach has such a major impact on your child, right? Going forward. And one thing I do recommend for people, if you're going to have the conversation with a coach, don't do it on the sideline in front of everybody. Just kind of keep it. Right? Have that conversation. I'm sure at some point you've had to have a conversation with a coach. It's like, hey, look, man, just my suggestion, you're the coach, I respect you, but my suggestion is this. I always tell parents that the coach should control when, where, and how long any conversation lasts, particularly not to have this conversation in front of the kids, right?
In front of the kids, exactly.
You don't want to undermine the board.
And I think the only issue where I would step up and talk to a coach in that kind of a way is if it's a safety concern.
Okay.
As far as playing time, as far as things like that, you have to let your kid actually fend for themselves. And believe me, if your kid should be on the field, the coach wants to win, your child will be on the field, and that's what you have to kind of always understand. When you're for whatever position he or she is in, he or she will be put in that position.
So trust in the process, right?
Trust the process.
And I would imagine, all right, so think back to your younger days. Did you have a coach that like turned you onto the game of football? Do you have one that was like, you know what I mean?
When I tell you he is the reason I played football beyond 12 years old, it was actually, I'll tell a quick story. Do I have time for a quick story, Aaron?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? Go for it. You know me.
Aaron, I think we broke. Okay, perfect. All right. I was actually afraid to tackle. I was 12 years old and afraid to tackle. Okay. I didn't have good technique, but I was afraid, right? So I forgot this coach's name, but you're familiar with the Oklahoma drill, right, Aaron?
Oh, yeah. All right.
One football player lays down here. Another one is, yep. Another one is laying down here. Coach blows the whistle. You stand up and run. And you have to tackle the offensive runner, right? And I was terrified of this drill, and I was terrified of a kid named Philip Martin. And the coach put me against Philip Martin.
This is 20 years ago, and you still remember the kid's name, right?
I don't remember the coach's name.
This is the impact you had. You remember? Okay, keep going. I'm listening.
I don't remember the coach's name, but I remember Philip Martin.
There you go.
And Coach put me against him. It was raining. It was like a movie scene. It was raining. Coach laid us both down. We got up. He ran me over, flat over. I was crying, got back up. Coach said, go again. We got up again, ran me over again. Coach said, go again. And after about 3 or 4 times, I was crying. I said, forget it. I'm going to go all out. And I just decided that it was over with. Right. We both got down. I got up. And when I say I hit him so hard, the ball flew straight up in the air. He was out of wind, injured. And I realized that, like, after that hit, I realized that it was all just about not being scared. It was all just about believing in myself. Yeah. And it's all mental. And I didn't realize how mental it was until after that. But after that, Philip Martin, he was scared of me at that point. And if he's listening, he'll know. He was scared of me at that point because I realized that it's all mental and all it takes is being confident in what you're doing.
Man, what a great, I mean, thank you for sharing the story, but think about how that translates to everything in life. And that again gets back to our premise, right? I mean, the reality is, I know this for a fact. When I'm a parent on the sideline, if I'm watching that practice and you get knocked down, a lot of parents are going, oh man, I got to help them up. And it's like, no, you can't do that, right? You got to let them, right?
Work through it. Work through the process.
I remember a long time ago, somebody told me the story of a cocoon, right? That when the cocoon starts to form and then it's going to become the butterfly, if you go and take just one pin and poke it through, what happens is it weakens it, right? Which you think is helping to become the butterfly. The problem is, because the butterfly doesn't have to use the wings as strong to open that up, the butterfly only lived 2 days because it didn't develop it on its own strength, man. And I know we got deep there for a second, but there's something.
I like that. That right? Is so true.
Right, it really is. That's part of the journey. So really, football, I'm not gonna say it made you who you are, but it definitely helped you to develop the resilience. I mean, I know your story and I know the things that you have been through and trials and tribulations and life and your, all these different components. And a lot of this came from your experience, not just in the pros, not just playing for Belichick, although I'm sure there's great stuff there too, but coming up, right? Learning those lessons.
Oh yeah, it 100% has, yeah.
So when you talk about coaches, the importance of a youth coach is very, very significant, right? Right? Because the coach can either turn them on or blow them out of the game and the whole deal, right?
Oh, definitely. A coach can put it into you or take it out of you as a youth.
So if you're a parent and you're going through that, do you have any suggestions? Like, have you had to deal with any coaches that, I know you talked about how you go about doing it, but have you had coaches for your boys? Or it sounds like you coached them a lot, but coaches that you've had to find a way. But I guess it sounds like you were talking about a little bit, but you pretty much just stayed back and said, this is how it's going to be. And you just trusted it, or have you had to have conversations with the coaches?
Oh yeah, I've let coaches coach. I mean, for the most part, especially if it's not my sport. Okay. I don't have much to say to a basketball coach.
Okay.
But no, I let coaches coach. The biggest thing I look for is if, again, safety, or if you're doing things that are demotivating players from wanting to play a sport. And in those situations, I may just like tell him, from my perspective as an athlete, hey, I think what you're doing may be demotivating players. Because that's the one thing you don't want. You don't want your child demotivated. You don't want your child to feel as if the effort they're putting in isn't going anywhere.
Right.
So you want to make sure you have a coach that knows how to motivate. And I want a coach to be hard on my kids, because that life is hard. So I want them to get used to dealing with adverse situations. But yeah, I'm pretty, I'm pretty relaxed when it comes to dealing with
I like it. I was doing a chat with Rick Barry, and he was mentioning one of his sons came down and made a play that was just naturally instinctive and threw the ball with his left hand, bounced past the whole deal. And the coach was screaming from the sideline, like, run the play and this and that. And Rick is like, wait, man, that's an amazing athletic play. Do it. He did the right thing. And the coach was so worried about what we call coach-centric instead of player-centric, you know what I mean? That Rick got frustrated, you know what I mean? It's like, wait a second, encourage them to be creative, encourage them to try, right? I mean, that's part of what we want with our kids, right?
Exactly. And there's a balance. I think sometimes a kid has to learn to trust themselves sometimes and step outside of exactly what the coach is saying and not be a robot.
Right.
had a coming out to basketball. He's always been a little bit. He's always been great player, good skills, good fundamentals, but not as confident. This year he got his confidence, and now like the shots he was scared to take, he'll take them now. And a lot of times coaches, once the coaches see you confident, they'll allow you to do things they didn't let you do before. So a lot of times your confidence would dictate how coach coaches you.
I agree. You know, it's funny. I remember coming up, and fundamentals were pounded in my head when I was young. I mean, I would go and practice basketball. But I remember when the first time I literally got the ball and I drove through two guys, and I literally step layup and went through it, took the hit and finished it. And I was like, it was like, wow, I can do this. And then it was like, then I was like looking for people. Who can I bang into to get my shot? You know?
Exactly.
Right? Because now you know, you're like, okay, now I got this, right? So for you, I know we've spoken before, and I know on some of the other conversations I have with other athletes, particularly pros. So the fundamentals, realistically, look, you got to be a good athlete to play at the highest level. Let's be honest, right? But talk about the fundamentals, Mike, because I know you really spent time making sure that your boys understand how to do it the right way. But tell me a little bit about the fundamentals and your thought process on that, about how important they are.
I mean, I think fundamentals gives you a chance. If you don't have the fundamentals, a lot of times, the higher up in level you go through high school, it just cuts your chance of being able to play. So it's very, very important to get the fundamentals and get them as early as possible. Because I watch kids that I was actually athletically better than when I started playing football.
Yeah.
They just had fundamentals, and that got them to where they want to be at. So I think definitely as early as you can, expose your kids to fundamentals of sports, and not just one sport, as many sports as possible, because there is even carryover between sports.
Yeah. You know, I always tell everybody, like, a kid's body is an all-terrain vehicle, man, and they got to learn to drive all these different things, right? You know, soccer, you're using your feet, and lacrosse, and basketball, and football, and just whatever, swimming, whatever it is, mix it all up, right? Because then you learn to develop muscles and balance and coordination and speed and all these different things across the board. So I know your thought process on with your boys, but what's your thought on camps and clinics and trainings and ideas and concepts? You got some ideas around that a little bit?
Yeah, I think as long as your kid is motivated to go, you should give them as many of those programs as possible. Whether they're skills camps, summer camps, clinics, as much as possible. It's almost like if your child is hungry, feed them. Him or her, feed them, put them in as many opportunities to learn as possible, because all that stuff is just going to accelerate their game and give them a better chance.
Right.
I mean, I think the balance is making sure that they're motivated and enjoying the situation so that they do get as much as they can out of it. Right. And put them in camps and clinics that are fun, because at the end of the day, it has to be fun, and you want to find a balance between, pounding them with information and fundamentals plus having fun.
Right. Well, we use talk, teach, play for a reason, obviously, because, keeping it simple explanations, giving them fundamental skills, and then letting them play it out a little bit and kind of have that fun. Because ultimately, if the kids, like you said, if it's not their passion and they're not having fun, they're not going to want to do it, and they're going to fall into that 61% that quit, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So look, man, I think about this, and I think whether it's football or basketball, whatever sport, I think it's so important, for parents to put their kid out there and to do that. Protecting your kid, in my opinion, comes from the ability to understand that the more fundamental they get, the more understanding of the game, the concepts of the sports IQ, all those things are important. Give me a couple tips that you use that we can share with the audience here and the parents, in terms of, okay, I got a child, maybe here's one. I'm a parent. I'm not really a sports guy. Like you said, man, you were 12 and you were into sports, you know what I mean? So what do you tell that parent in terms of, hey, not talk about sports in general, and how to get them to realize the value of the sports participation versus the possibility of the injuries or the negative side? What do you got to say about that?
I think a big thing is, and what I realize I don't see enough, is just get your kid outside in front of the house playing sports. Go out. If your kid doesn't like football, go out and throw the football with them a couple days and see if he or she says, hey, I want to come back again and ask you the next day. Go out and shoot some baskets. Go out and kick the soccer ball around. But I think it starts in kids just playing it and liking to play the sport, and want to get into a structured setting to where they're on team and everything. But Send them outside. Get your kids outside and get them out there with a ball and get them playing some sports, you know? And a lot of times when you do that enough, they'll catch on and they'll want more of it.
Okay.
As opposed to and I think the problem happens when you put your kid into a team setting before they've even kicked the soccer ball at home.
Yeah.
Or out of basketball at home. Let them get, acclimated a little bit.
Well, my rule with my kids was that if they're going to play a sport, that I would play some of it with them in advance, but I also get them to a clinic so they understand the rules of the game and and it really helped their confidence.
Basic.
You know what I mean? Because they stepped out there like, okay, I know the lines that I'm supposed to stay in. I know how to pass it out, so I get the basic fundamentals, right? Because then their confidence up, and then it's more fun, right?
Yeah, because we forget, it's hard. There's a lot of rules to these sports that we've been playing for years, and our kids are just coming from nothing. So it can be overwhelming,
right?
Right at the beginning.
Man, this has been good stuff. I'll tell you what, I obviously enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully those that have been paying attention here and getting some tips on maybe how to engage a little bit. And what I love is your journey. In fact, like you said, man, being 12 years old, really not into it, going through the adversity that you did of not really getting a chance to play, and then getting to play in high school and then college and in the NFL as you did, man. I really appreciate your time and sharing with it. If I've got people that are watching the channel here, what's the best way if they want to reach out to Michael Stone? Can they follow you on some social media and get contact? What's the best way to do that?
Oh yeah, my Instagram is mstone44, MSTONE 44. Okay. And that's probably the major platform I'm on. I'm on Facebook as well, Michael Stone. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And if anybody reaches out through the National Academy of Athletics and wants to get in touch with you, I'll follow up with you and I'll be able to get some contact as well. But I've always loved your perspective on life and how it's related and what you've been able to do with kids. And I appreciate your time. If anybody is interested in following the channel, of course, you can click on subscribe here. I'm really excited that Talk, Teach, Play is getting a louder voice, and there's more and more people that are getting engaged and having fun. Michael, I've got another thing that came into my head I want to talk to you about, so I'm going to have to get you back on in the not too distant future as we go forward. All right?
Let's do it. Thanks for having me on there.
You got it. So you can follow us on social media, of course, Facebook and all the regular channels that are out there. Again, subscribe to the channel. Or if you want to get direct contact with us, just check out our programs or contact information at nationalacademyofathletics.com. And we always leave the end of Talk, Teach, Play with play hard, have fun, man. Appreciate it, everybody. Take care.